What's good, y'all? My name is Dylan Green, and this is Real Notes, a space dedicated to blurring the cultural and artistic lines between rap and film. I'm here to chop it up with everyone from rappers and producers to journalists and video directors about their relationship to movies and how, if at all, film inspires their craft. My guest this week is journalist Caleb Catlin. We talked about white rappers, growing up with the movies Stomp the Yard and Get Rich or Die Tryin', the beauty of Moonlight, the meaning of the Oscars, his favorite movie soundtracks, his article series The Good and the Ugly, rap regionalism, what constitutes realness in rap, and our favorite Lloyd Banks verses on R&B tracks. Come fuck with us.
Spanish white rappers. There's only like three that are like it's Paul Wall, rest in peace Mac Miller, and then I guess if I'm being nice to LP, I'll include him. Surely I'm forgetting someone, but like
Weird Al Yankovic. You're forgetting Weird Al Yankovic. I'm never gonna stop saying it. Weird Al Yankovic
Facts.
is one of the best white rappers alive.
Facts, and I mean the catalog is deeper than Eminem.
And he did the fake Eminem interview too, which is not super funny anymore. Like he was Weird Al was kind of like doing some edgelord shit with those interviews. But either way, like he's got better music than Eminem sometimes.
Listen, the bag is deep. Come on. He hit the Michael Jackson bag. Like Eminem couldn't do that. He ain't drop a hot album in 20 years. Nah. How you all time great? You ain't dropped nothing hot in 20 years.
Like, and then on top of that, Weird Al dropped his last album was his biggest album ever. It was his first #1 on the Billboard 2. Like, come on, son. Like Eminem, like, I mean, like Eminem's had fucking like #1s on Billboard and shit, but like, he hasn't had. He's not Weird Al.
Listen,
people are gonna eat us alive, and it's been like fucking 5 minutes already.
Man, fuck these white rappers, bro. I don't like. Again, it's Paul Wall, Weird Al, rest in peace Mac Miller, and I guess if I'm being nice, like LP. But even then, like him and Killer Mike trade off them Transformers trailer blockbuster songs or whatever. That's
You're
what
not
it is,
wrong,
man.
but stop.
That's what it is. Like Eminem got the Venom bag. They got like the
but they also got the Venom bag. They made a movie.
Thing.
They made a song for Venom.
Same thing, then. So they both got the Venom bag, where Tom Hardy does like the bad acting and shit.
Yeah,
but like it's just silly enough for it to work.
But shout out to LP. I like I've been listening to the What Had Happened Was shit that Mike Eagle's been doing. Shout out to Mike Eagle and Stony Island one time because they're all really great. And yeah, just like hearing a lot of those stories has been like LP is like outside of Weird Al, like as semi-serious as I am about that, like I would probably say LP and Mac are my two favorite white rappers. And Paul Wall. Like yeah, like that, those three.
Yeah,
that's my starting.
Come on.
That's my starting three.
I told my pops. I told him about Eminem. I told him I was like Paul Wall better than Eminem, and he looked at me like I like inflicted the plague upon him or some shit. Like I just told him I was like Paul Wall way better, and he like I don't know, like I said like a crime or something, but I was like he's clearly better. He was like, listen, you gotta lay down or something. And it's something about like the lyrical quote unquote idea. But like at some point you got to start making good music after a while. Like it's been 20 years. And if you want to be nice, you can say Marshall Mathers LP2, but what that came out 2012, 2013. So it's been 8 years almost.
And it's also not good.
It's not. And it's also not very but people give that one credit and I'm just like, all right, whatever. Let's say I give you that. It's been 8 years. Yeah. And he also dropped one of the worst rap albums in this century.
Which
Revival.
One? Okay.
Revival. As much as I don't like the one with the Joyner Lucas song on it, it's not like
that's Kamikaze, I think. Why do I know this?
See, look at you. You exposing yourself. You getting your real nerd bag over there. That's crazy. Nah, like you really know this rap shit. Like you mentioned in the Euro Droog references and esoteric. Like, bro, I couldn't remember that. Like I love this music shit. I live and bleed by it. But like, no, I couldn't recite Eminem bars on a whim.
No, see, I can't recite Eminem bars on a whim that aren't from nothing past the Eminem. No, sorry, hang on. Curtain Call, because Shake That Ass is on Curtain Call, and I do love that song, but it's mostly because of Nate Dogg.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to Nate Dogg.
Rest
But
in peace, Nate Dogg.
yeah, like that was the last time I gave a shit about an Eminem song, was Curtain Call, and that was what, like mid 2000s. Like,
yeah, and that's again almost 20 years.
right, exactly.
It's
Like,
almost been 20 years. And like, what's
yeah.
crazy about Curtain Call is it's got that fact song on it, and that is a war crime against the ears. Like,
That shit is awful. That shit is
bro,
terrible.
it is the worst. And like, I don't know, it's supposed to be funny, but like, I don't know, that hamster anal play is very funny. But
But you know,
what do I know? Maybe the white rap fans will come on talking about some fact is actually genius and da 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 da. Like, fuck out of here.
you see, like Eminem also really thought that bringing Triumph the Insult Comic Dog onto an album was going to be fun. Remember when he did that on Relapse? There's like a whole song with Triumph on it. Like what year is it, bro? Like,
you giving me like flashbacks and shit, and I'm not a fan at all, because like I gotta be honest, I've completely blanked out what was on Relapse for
Good.
most of my life, and now you brought that up, and now I can't stop thinking about 20 years. 20 years.
20 years. 20 years. Damn. We're already going in. So let me not even fucking beat around the bush. Hi, what's cracking? Welcome back. What's up, everybody? This is Real Notes number 11. We're chugging right along. This is already fire. This is every guest is special. Wait, I forgot the other thing. My name is Dylan Green, CineMasai, 2 names. I got a lot of names. All my guests are special, but this guest is especially special to me because A, he's the first writer, the first journalist, the first person with the pen that we've had on this joint. And B, he's just, like a wealth of music knowledge and fandom, and just like really one of the more passionate dudes that I've met out here. This is my guy, fucking Caleb Catlin, in the fucking place to be on here. I'm very honored to have this guy as my first writer on here. So thank you, bro, for coming on my shit.
Well, first of all, of course, I wanted to get on here amongst the first episodes. For 2, you almost nailed the intro. Catlin is the last name. Catlin. And
I
like,
knew.
I don't know. Like, maybe people, opt for Caitlin because like maybe there's an I in there or whatever. But I don't know. Like, I kind of let it slide most times. But I just wanted to point it out for future reference, because I will surely be a repeat guest.
Yeah.
And for 3, yes, absolutely, I am amazing. I do the writing thing pretty well, if I say so myself. No, I'm bugging. I'm pretty all right at the writing thing. You kind of gassed me a little bit, so that feels good.
Hey man, the great thing about being friends is being truthful with each other, whether that's correcting someone on fucking up a last name, sorry about that, or just recognizing good writing when you see it. You got a cool mind, you got cool stuff going on, and you like movies, and I like movies. So we're going to do this shit and we're going to have fun. I hope we're going to have fun.
I listen, I would hope we're having fun. I mean, I don't know if bashing Eminem is fun for the listeners and whatnot, but I mean, I'm having fun. This is a pastime. I get to trash with one of the gassed rappers of the last 20 years. Come on.
Yeah, you already know what it is. We're already having fun. So yeah, I'm gonna ask you the first question that I ask everybody who comes on to my show, which is what's the first movie experience you can remember? That could either be your first trip to the movies, it could be the first time you saw a movie at home, at your friend's house, at your cousin's house, at wherever, like your first movie memory.
I can give you a bit of both. The first movie that I can really remember watching was I think I was like 5 years old, and Get Rich or Die Tryin', the movie came on. That's the first one that I can really remember. And I remember that vividly because I could like have my eyes glued to the screen for the rest of it. But when the sex scene came on, you know, it was eyes over, you know, hand over the eyes or whatever, which, you know, at 5 years old, I shouldn't have been around that anyway. But, you know, 50 Cent back then, that was like my hero. Like that's
unstoppable.
Like I didn't really get into superheroes like everybody else. Like everybody was rocking with Spider-Man, Superman and shit. 50 Cent was my hero, and 106 in Park was like my like daily show. Like that was like people have Regis and Kelly. I had Terrence J and Roxy.
Yeah, I feel like no. Finish your thought. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, and I was just gonna say, and then the movie theater one was. This is the only time I went during like my early childhood was Stomp the Yard. We've talked about this plenty of times.
Oh, yes, we have.
Yeah, I was a Chris Brown guy through and through. You know, I was my age, and you know, clearly Chris Brown was like much older than me at like 6 or whatever. But you know, he had like a youthful energy to him. So I was like, yeah, he's a kid. I'm gonna rock with him. I'm a kid. And I bought that first album. That was one of the first albums that I like begged my mom to buy. Wow. And yeah, I don't know if I saw it on a trailer or if he promoted it on 106, but yeah, I was like, Mom, we gotta go watch Stomp the Yard. And I didn't really go to the movie theaters until I was like a teenager after that. But I came in thinking that it was like, oh, this is a Chris Brown movie. I didn't know that this was the Columbus Short movie. So I'm watching and I'm like, oh, this is so fire. Chris Brown is stunting on him with all the dance moves or whatever. And I don't know, he does like this handstand. It's all in slow motion. And I'm like, oh, he pulled out the handstand on him. And you know, then I'd finish it, and like it's a weird setting. By the way, that movie's like that starting is very weird.
It's like really strange.
It's this bunny suit person. It's this dude with a bald piece, like weird cap on his head. Like I don't know. That whole scene was weird, but like you know, Chris Brown busted out the gloves and he did the handstand. And I was like, oh, he's different. And then they pull up to the train yard. They'd have like this cringe scene where they do like the spray paint or whatever. And then they get to the part where Buddy pulls up on him for doing a handstand all in his face and whatnot. And he pops him. And I'm like, oh.
And that was, were they in the parking lot when that happened? I don't remember.
They were in a train yard.
It was the train. Reason? Okay, it was the train yard. Okay.
Yeah, and no trains was coming neither. Like it was just like an abandoned train yard where they pulled up with some graffiti, and then Chris Brown gets popped for a handstand. Which, you know, by the way, is still so funny. Like the dance moves, like the handstand was the big, you know, tension. Like not all the disrespectful pop blocks all up in each other's face. It was the handstand where he was like, murk this man.
And you know what's funny? That's not even the most disrespectful dance shit that happens in that movie. I can't remember which dance off it is, but Neo does the shit where he starts fucking doing the fake sweeping and then kicks the fake dirt at them. That shit was more insulting than the fucking handstand. And he didn't get popped for that. So like,
listen, there's a difference between Neo and Chris Brown. There's a difference.
A big difference.
There's a big difference. Like, listen, if you know, you know. But Neo is that guy. And in my own words, this is one of the best albums ever. So they saw that sweeping and it was like, all right. But, you know, Sexy Love is a hit too. So
yeah, Sexy Love, When You're Mad, So Sick. We could go down the list, man.
Listen, I'm not going to make this movie podcast about the Neo albums, but I could go there. But Stomp the Yard. He gets popped early on. I mean, I'm devastated. Like Chris Brown was the guy, and I was like, oh my God. You know, I think that might have been like the first real movie death that like got me, because I was like, why Chris Brown get popped and da 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 da. And I don't know why, but I stuck through the rest of that movie. And like when I left the movie theater, I kept like trying to do all the dance moves in the parking lot. Like shit was hard. I was like, how he slide his head like that? But then I just realized oh, that's just Columbus Short's head. Like
right,
he just got a flat head and he was able to use that to his advantage.
Man, Columbus Short and Chris Brown were two people who really kind of wound up in some interesting spots because you know, like Columbus Short had a drug problem and he wound up domestically abusing somebody, and Chris Brown, we all know what happened with Chris Brown, and like it's just crazy to think about where the two leads, or at least like the big star and the lead in that movie turned up. And like, it's also just the reason why I appreciate You Got Served that much more. I don't know. that's just kind of been me, because like I saw Stomp the Yard with one of my best friends. I told this story, I think, a couple episodes ago. Like, me and one of my homies saw it, and like the two of us were just like, yeah, like we just weren't really into Chris Brown like that at that point. Because I remember when I saw the Run It video, and like I went nuts watching him dance. But for some reason, I was just like not on that wave when I saw the movie, and I was just like, fuck Chris Brown. But like, like either way, like that moment was a defining moment for so many people within our like age range. Like you could talk to anybody who was like from like 21 to 30 years old, and they're gonna have a moment and a memory associated with watching Chris Brown die and Stomp the Yard. That specific scene.
Well, it's
Like,
the one of the funniest. Like, it's a funny casting choice all around in that movie
yeah.
too, because I think like it's Neo, and then it's, I might be wrong here, but I think it's Buddy who was crying on the roof with Morgan Freeman on Lean on Me. I think he was also in that movie, one of the roommates.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
But yeah, it was like, wait, so the Lean on Me kid is here, Neo's here, Chris Brown got popped over a handstand, and this dude that I've never seen before is the lead. Which at that point I was like, who the fuck is Columbus Short? But
Yeah, so was everyone.
And then Fine As Megan Good. I think that might have been what hooked me, because at first I was like, man, who the fuck is Columbus Short, man? I don't care about this movie. And then I saw Fine As Megan Good, and I was like,
yeah,
I sunk back in the seat.
yeah, like between it, so it's like Megan Good and Stomp the Yard, Zoe Saldana in Drumline. I'm trying to remember who was in You Got Served. Who was it in You Got Served?
I don't remember it being anybody like official or anything, but
I don't
I don't know. Here's the thing, like everybody's You Got Served, that would like Stomp the Yard was my You Got Served. Something about stomping in place and doing head slides and shit was like the coolest shit to me.
I mean, yeah, like it totally was. And like and like I mentioned Drumline too, specifically because those are both like, they're both college sports movies. Like everybody likes to compare. I mean, like obviously like the comparison between Stomp the Yard and You Got Served is like super duper obvious, but like that's like, I always think about it in relation to Drumline because of the HBCU connection, and just like I'm like, I didn't go to an HBCU, but like just like knowing people who did, and like having a passing familiarity with like what goes on and like the traditions and all that shit, like that's always what I associated those two movies with. And like they're both college movies in the fact that they have like goofy college kid characters in them that are just like goofy and like that's always really funny to me. I don't know, it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's weird with Nick Cannon and like Columbus Short, because like you think of them, and I think of old Nick Cannon movies. Fuck, it's another one where he had the goofy ass afro, because it clearly was not real. At least I don't think it was. But like I forget which one that was. Oh my god. But like Nick Cannon as the leading man, and then Nick Cannon as, Gigolo, and then Nick Cannon as Wildin' Out as Gigolo. I'm like referring to his rap career. I want to like, that's the one song I remember him by. It was that, and like he released some freestyle with all his Wildin' Out people, which is all just battle rappers who can't rap on a actual like independent beat. But I won't go in that shade.
Let's not talk about Conceited too much on here. But have you so let me ask you now, have you heard the music he made for Chirac, that Spike Lee movie?
No, I saw like the poster and whatnot for Chirac, and I was like, I'm not gonna watch this, and I never watched it. I think it was like I associated with like some YouTube original, and I just kind of ignored it. I was like, oh yeah, YouTube, Nick Cannon, right on.
And it was bad. Like I appreciate, like I commend your self restraint, because that shit was garbage. My buddy, my other guy, he got it on bootleg, and he like brought it to my other friend's crib, and we all just watched it just because I was like, oh, it's a free movie, we got nothing to do. I watched that shit for free, and I wanted my money back. I was so fucking mad. at how bad that, and like I knew it was gonna be bad, right? Because like Spike was another director who at that point hadn't made a good movie in like a decade to me. So I was just like, I wanted to watch it, and I was like, this shit is ass. Like you know, like Vic Mensa shows up in the beginning, and you could tell that he doesn't want to be there, and just like they tried so hard to get so contemporary and so modern with like how rap was happening in Chicago at that point, and they missed the mark so horribly. On top of everything else wrong with that movie, it's just a bad movie from in every conceivable way. Just a really really bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I think Spike did the Old Boy remake before that too, which was
And that
also
was
really bad.
also ass. Yeah, okay, just making sure.
Yeah, I forget what he did that past decade, but I don't know what happened with Chirac for him to be like, you know what, I gotta make actual movies and shit.
And
like,
nobody in Chicago wanted him to make that movie. Like
he's
everybody who
not
was the
he's not the person to make that kind of movie. Like, he's
no.
not from Chicago. That's not his culture. And no matter how much talk to X, Y, and Z person, like, you're not gonna fully understand that atmosphere unless you got like Chicago ass people around. And
Right.
Vic Mensa, God bless, but like that, if you're trying to depict Chicago and all of its facets, you got to hit every facet. You got to talk to, like, the drill artists. You got to understand every aspect of the community that you're trying to tap into, because you can see, Spike is not unfamiliar with getting the most out of a perfect environment. Like, Do the Right Thing is like
Totally.
the perfect depiction of New York outside of like Illmatic. Like, those are, like, when I think of how New York is in my imagination, it's Do the Right Thing and it's Illmatic. So he understands the importance of depicting the area around you. But I think at some point, you get jaded and you're like, oh, fuck it, I'll make Chirac with Vic Mensa and Nick Cannon. Or fuck it, I'll make an Old Boy remake that definitely didn't need to be remade and didn't offer like any new insight to what that world could be.
Yeah, and like the weird part about the Old Boy remake is that like you remember you seen the original, I assume, right? So
Yeah.
like you remember how like you remember the whole like dumplings thing with the clue and shit,
Mm-hmm.
and just like how they like figured out they were at the like they did that again in America, where it like the disconnect there, and the fact that nobody was like Spike, literally no one can tell dumplings apart from the 6 different places that you can get them in one block in one area of this country. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just like that just showed me that he didn't give a shit. He literally just copy and pasted it and was like, okay, let's just do it. And then like add in Sam Jackson, who's always fun. He's never bad. He's one of those actors who's always good, even in a bad movie. So
Yeah.
like you're gonna win with him no matter what. But like, wow, like no one. It didn't need to be. You hit it. Like it didn't need to be remade, and it made me really sad that he wanted to do that.
It's something off about Chirac though that really like like destroyed everything, where he was like, you know what, cinema is important after all. And then made, I think it was fucking the John David Washington movie.
Oh, Black Klansman.
That's it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
still haven't watched that, but I like appreciated the fact that he clearly looked like he gave a fuck about it. He gave a fuck. He cared so much about it that he pulled up in the most exorbitant, the craziest suit I've ever seen at the Oscars. He pulled up looking like Waluigi, and I was like, oh yeah.
One. That's my favorite, and yeah, that was the one where he hopped into Sam Jackson's arms at the Oscars too. Yeah, that was a moment. That was a moment.
I was like, yeah, he fucks this movie. It's different.
Oh my! And like honestly, it's fine. It's good enough. It's the best thing that he had made for a really long time up to that point. Like I think about it. This is gonna sound fucked up, but I think about it like you remember when the first X-Men movie came out?
Mm-hmm.
And like the very first one, and like nobody up to that point had like nobody had ever made an X-Men movie before, so people were just like hyped to get an X-Men movie. And then you see something like X-Men First Class, which I think is a lot better. And it's like, oh, like this is like a good X-Men movie. And
Yeah.
it's just so like it was just like that first joint was good enough. You
Yeah.
know, and for me, it's not on the same level as the first X-Men movie, but like Black Klansman was good enough. And
Yeah.
like it was good like it was good by virtue of not being terrible.
Yeah, it's just
But
that craving that you have for that sort of content. Like, if you really wanted to see new Spike Lee that was actually good, you would watch Black Klansman. But like,
and then the Five Bloods happened, and that was actually
and
really good.
completely like completely washed. Like, honestly, I find it very difficult whether or not I choose the Five Bloods or Do the Right Thing as his best movie. Like that,
Really?
yeah. I think it's that, and then it's fuck, I'm forgetting the name, but like that whole '90s run was mostly good,
Mm-hmm.
and but yeah, it was the Five Bloods because I don't remember movies that like affected me that much the way that the Five Bloods. Like that was, as far as new movies, it's been a minute since I was like deeply affected by a character because I know someone like Delroy Lindo's character. I know, like, older Black men that are either conservative or they get it. Like, my family is like I know my granddad personally is a wild dude, and like I see a lot of like that Delroy Lindo character in my own family, so you feel a bit more empathy for the characters that way. And I think back to that Do the Right Thing scene where Radio Raheem if I'm spoiling, if you ain't watched Do the Right Thing yet, like
that shit is 30 years old, bro. Talk about it.
that and like, why are you listening to a movie podcast if you ain't like prepared with the goods? But yeah, I think about that, like those final scenes and Do the Right Thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's deeply moving in a sense that you don't get that much from other filmmakers, that are just whatever about the shit. Like, there's a deep sense of care in Spike's best movies. There's, a deep emotionality. And though he's not very subtle, he's like, you can tell when he gives a fuck. And that's what I think. I was listening to like this white critic on YouTube or whatever. He was talking about the Five Bloods, and he had all nice things to say about it, but he was like, oh, Spike Lee, not subtle. But I was like, how much does subtlety really matters? How much does subtlety really matter if the content itself is still impactful? Like, it can be like not subtle, but like if there's a clear care and emotionality to it, like it shouldn't matter if it went over your head or if it directly hits you in the heart.
Right. And like Spike is passionate. Like a lot of people like unsubtle is a word I see a lot with him. Like, real quick digression. I love the movie Bamboozled. It makes me extremely uncomfortable, but I love the movie Bamboozled. I saw it because my dad owned pretty much every Spike Lee movie up until Bamboozled. So I like watched it on my own one day, and like I had to take a break halfway through. Like if y'all listening haven't seen Bamboozled, it's a really just a wild movie about like a guy who like he is a Black dude who attempts to get fired from his like network executive job by like pitching a minstrel show, like like kind of like the Tonight Show, but like with people in blackface. And like to his horror, the white executive is like, I love it, let's do it. So they like actually make the show, and that's the whole movie. And like, so like I watched it for the first time at home, so I'd already had that kind of like in my brain. And then I went to college years later, and I watched we saw it in a film class, and a woman in front of me, when we finished watching it, I saw her taking down notes. The two words that she wrote in her notebook, big as hell, were "too angry." She said the movie was too angry.
But like,
and I was like
you're kind of missing the point. Like, if you don't feel passionate about the subject, then what the fuck are you covering it for?
Like, exactly. Like, come on. Like, movies take a lot of work. They cost a lot of money. They have a lot of people behind them to make them. Like, if you're not gonna like, that's one thing that I've always respected about Spike Lee. Even if I don't like his movies, like he's like you could tell that he cares about pretty much everything he makes, even if
Yeah.
it's not good. Like the Sweet Blood of Jesus, terrible. Miracle of Saint Anna, terrible. Red Hook Summer, terrible. They're all bad movies, but he cares. Like, and that
Hmm.
and like that means something to me. I don't know. Like that means something to me.
No, because there's so much content where it seems like there's not a lot of care about it, and it's still received good. Like I think about that one year where Green Book won all those Oscars, and I
Right.
was like, this is streamlined. Like this is for maximum comfortability while quote unquote saying something. But like you didn't really have anything of note to say other than like, oh, maybe we should treat each other good. Like, oh, it's shocking, I know.
Right.
But I think about those movies, or I think about recently Nomadland. I haven't seen it yet, but one of my friends was like, this is the longest Super Bowl commercial I've ever seen in my life. And
I
I
want to.
was
Mm,
yeah,
kinda.
it's so many people that like love that movie, but like there are some people who are like, this is poverty porn, or this is or this is Super Bowl commercial movie.
See,
And like on one end I can get it, because it's like, all right, like this seems like, wow, we should care about, like the poor, the people that in the lower class, or people that are have to be in those situations. But like the care was there, and you can tell it just by the camera work.
yeah. And like on top of that, the thing that makes Nomadland such an interesting movie to me, because I watched it pretty recently, like it's they got a lot of actual people who like live that lifestyle to be in the movie,
Yeah,
because it's based on a either a book or an article, I forget. But like they got all those people in the movie, and that made it feel less exploitative to me than it might have otherwise, because Frances McDormand has tendencies to kind of like make that type of shit where like
yeah.
that on that three billboard shit, like that's exactly what that like
It's
that shit
such
was
a bad
like
movie.
all. And like on top of being bad, it was exploitative. Like that's
Yeah,
exploitative. Like I don't like, I think Chloe Zhao put too much effort into making that movie for it for me to consider it like exploitative or like bad. But I think it's definitely a conversation worth having, because like 80% of people are not living like nomads and moving across the country. Like that's a really wild lifestyle to live. And like another thing people don't really seem to realize, like a lot of people choose to live like that, especially in this context. Like they're choosing to do all of this. And like a big part of Frances McDormand's character in the movie is that she like chooses to do this. Like it's not
yeah.
like it was forced upon her. Like her husband died and then she was like, I just want to do this. So like I think exploring that area is like it's a really tight rope to walk. I don't think they did it perfectly, but I wasn't like mad at it, if that makes any sense. I really hope that's not coming across as insensitive, because I'm not trying to like fucking talk down on anyone who's living that life or just like has lived and struggled, like really struggled, like that's not what I'm trying to do here. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to your point that you thought when watching it that including real people made it not exploitative, when some people argue the opposite, that you're getting these real people and their real experiences just for the sake of this filmmaking. But
Yeah.
which it can feel icky, but like at some point you can be like, I can get it. Like there's a big line in art in general between intent and what it is. And like I think we have to understand what the intent is with everyone that we're talking to,
Yeah.
because more times than not, I think we truly underestimate just how possibly oblivious, I think is the good word. I think we underestimate just how oblivious some things can be to us, how ignorant we can be to some things. There's always going to be like holes to what we imagine. So I think including the director's intent is very important, and it's what's going to separate a book, the Green Book, from Nomadland,
Oh,
because
that's big
the
facts.
the intent behind Green Book was like, all right, well, this is middle of the road. Let's get this, quote, controversial idea that, hey, maybe white people and black people should be kind to one another, like, and then there's Nomadland, where it's like, all right, let's explore this lifestyle, and though you can, possibly look at it from a dicey angle, you can be like, all right, well, I can get it. Like, you understand the intent behind it. Where with Green Book, it's like, all right, we know that this is icky, and you made it anyway.
Yeah. Wow, that's I agree with all of that. Like I got nothing else to add. That's really you put that so well. Like
I mean,
yeah.
I'm articulate sometimes. Like, I use the word like a lot in my sentences, but
Same, bro.
I mean, like,
Hey.
sometimes I get a point off.
So before we get too far off track, like it feels so crazy to go back to like Stomp the Yard after all of this, but like you've seen Stomp the Yard and it's kind of like piqued your interest in like the world of movies. That's kind of what you've been telling me. So like for you, like if there was another movie that you could pick that was the point where you fell in love with movies, or like at least you like recognize them as like, oh shit, this is a thing I love to watch, like what would that be if it wasn't Stomp the Yard?
Mm, okay, so I don't know that I fell in love with movies until much later. So
That's cool.
with Stomp the Yard, I watched that because it was Chris Brown in it, and though he got popped, I think I stuck with it because Megan Good was fine as hell. And I didn't end up going to the movie theater until like in my preteens, like 12, 13. And even then, like, I was watching a whole bunch of bullshit in a passive way. And I don't think I really started getting into it until like I think I came across the Oscars, which is a bad place to really get, your big movie kickoff. But like, I would look at what was nominated and I'd be like, that sounds cool. And I watched, I think, the movie that really got me into like thinking about movies in a deeper sense. And this sounds cliche as hell, but like Moonlight really did that for me, where like I watched it and I was like, oh, this is like, this isn't just like some marveled cinematic universe shit. Like, it's like, this is a very emotive movie where you
Mm-hmm.
get to feel this character across 3 acts. And I was like, man, this is like, I'm to avoid going on a big like ramble. Like, it was deeply impactful, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna keep searching through these bootleg sites so that I can keep watching movies. Because again, the big thing for me was accessibility. And once I found that bootleg site, I was like, cool, I'm gonna watch a whole bunch of stuff that I hadn't watched.
Mm.
And that's where I am now with it, where now there's streaming services, but like at that time I was like 16, 15, 16, 17, and I didn't have the money for that kind of shit. Like, I was borrowing Netflix from mom,
Right.
and I didn't and like I would use like free trials every few months or so for like HBO. I think it was HBO Now at the time, or like Hulu. And like I would use those, and then I would use my bootleg site. That's when I really started like paying attention, like, okay, these movies have more to say than just the entertainment value of it.
Right. Yeah, and like you don't have to feel like you gotta hide about the fact that like it took the Oscars to do it, because like that's I mean, like with all the problems that we have with the Oscars, like that's ultimately the reason they exist, right? Like usually,
Mm-hmm.
like especially with a movie like Moonlight, and like that was the year that the big La La Land shit happened too.
Mm-hmm.
So like the movie had an even bigger spotlight on it because of that. I was lucky enough to get to see it before the Oscars happened, and yeah, like I felt the same way, just like sitting down with it. Like at this point, I think I had already graduated college when it came out. I can't remember anymore, something like that. But like I remember watching it and just yeah, like it wasn't and like as a movie that I knew was gonna get picked up and like really spotlighted by the Oscars, I was like, this doesn't feel like Oscar bait to me. Like it really
No.
feels like something that wasn't just like churned out by a machine. There was a lot of passion and a lot of just a lot of like thought into it, like about like who these characters, like it felt lived in. It felt
Yeah.
like a place. It felt like a place that you could like actually go, and not
Yeah.
just like an escapist fantasy. And it was just such a, you know, like, you know, like um, I hadn't really seen very many. I hadn't really seen a queer experience on camera shown like that before. It was just
Yeah.
like they handled it with such grace. And you know, like I'm not like, it just really it just really was something that was really beautiful to see. And like and then on top of the fact that like it's a beautiful, it looks beautiful, the acting's great, the music cues are all dope, like
Yeah.
that shit made me like, that was the shit that made me appreciate Jadena. Like I didn't like Classic Man until I heard that Chopped and Screwed remix to Classic Man.
Well, let's be totally real here. Chopped and Screwed should be more implemented into these soundtrack scores.
Facts.
Like I think Chopped and Screwed is just as beautiful as some like John Bryan score, or one of
Mm-hmm.
these like beautiful like Hans Zimmer's thing. Like it has the same effect. And I think, I've talked about how much I love Houston to many points, but like Houston is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's so distinctly southern, but you couldn't confuse Houston with anywhere else on the map.
No.
Like you can go to Georgia, and I would get the same feeling I would get when I go back to my birthplace, Birmingham, Alabama.
Right.
But like you go to Houston, and it's like, all right, well, this is its totally own thing. Like it's got, you could see a slab going around playing a little kiki out the speaker. Like it's totally different from, I go by South Carolina. Like you get the same feeling from the South at large, but a place like Houston is so specifically them that you couldn't confuse it with anything else. But, and I'm getting off point. The Moonlight, I don't think it was the Oscars per se, but it definitely played a part. I think it was just me on YouTube, and I was like hearing about these movies from like movie reviews or whatever.
Right.
And I would just be like, oh well, I'll check that out. And then I would get to a Moonlight, then I would get to a La La Land. And with Moonlight, you said that it feels lived in. That's what's so great about Barry Jenkins films in general. Like his directed one specifically, because he has more hands-on parts with that. But you explore those worlds and you feel the love or otherwise, or any emotion that he wants to convey, you feel it like deep in the spirit. And that's a way that you can do it in a very subtle way, but it still hits you. Like it does. Like you don't have to think super hard about it. Like they're not telling you, oh, I'm sad, but you can look at it and you're like, oh, like you feel it when Trevante Rhodes, washes his face with the ice water and he dips his head back up. Like you feel the exhaustion almost coming off of his face.
Right. And then you go a little further with it, with that specific idea, and you look at Chiron and I forget the guy that Andre Holland played. I forget his name, but like you see them. Hang on. I'm on a computer. Let me look it up. But yeah, like you see, his name was Kevin. Wow. Okay. Yeah, just Kevin. You see the way that Chiron and Kevin are looking at each other, like in the diner when they're both grown, and like he's working behind the counter, and like you can see that longing in their eyes, but like they don't have to say, "I want you." Like it's not always. It doesn't always have to be that direct,
Yeah.
And that's I think that's a really the movie gets that, and I think Barry Jenkins, I believe he wrote it too as a writer and director, gets that. Like that's like things, like I think it's really interesting to compare somebody like Barry Jenkins to somebody like Spike Lee. Like Spike Lee is somebody who's very direct and is going to tell you exactly how he feels and how he wants you to feel. Barry Jenkins is just going to show it. Like it's literally the difference between telling and showing. And I think there's value in both.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there's value in both, but I think Moonlight was a particularly special, like that's like to me, that's going to be like a timeless movie. Like
Definitely.
we're gonna be talking about Moonlight in another 10 years. The way
Yeah.
we talk about like Spike Lee stuff, I think personally.
Yeah. I think what's so good about Moonlight is it's such a simple idea, but just empathy for the characters. And that's what the best a lot of my favorite movies do. A lot of my favorite shows is that you feel for the characters. And even despite any character flaws or anything, like you feel for them because of their circumstances, and it makes you a better thinker as a result. Like I look at Juan's character, Mashallah Ali's um, his character, and I look at it, and you're like, okay, well, he's a good mentor for Chiron, but on one end, he's also, I mean, he's a drug dealer, I think.
Yeah, he's a drug dealer.
Yeah. So he's pushing drugs, and
He was selling drugs to his mom. Like he wasn't just a drug dealer. He was selling drugs to Naomi Harris. There we go.
That's it. Yeah, and I like you think about that, and you're like, man, that's fucked up. But like on one end, you're like, why is he selling drugs, and why does his mom want it? There's always like nothing is ever black and white, and nothing. Everything in this life is always gray, and it takes more critical thinking for you to really understand and have more empathy for people.
Right. And yeah, like it's like real empathy, like not performative, not like, hey, we're here for the month of June to sell you a fucking rainbow t-shirt. It's like real empathy, like it's coming from a real place of a real want for understanding, a real want to be understood, and that's
it's a difference between McDonald's putting a rainbow on your Big Mac and a piece of art that really speaks to something more than that. Right. Like it's there's so much performative activism or whatever, but like the I guess it's better than not doing it, like right, but... like you look at McDonald's and you're like, oh yeah, awareness, da 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 da, and like I guess this is better than you not saying anything at all, but like don't expect me to be impressed that you're saying these things. Where with like a movie like Moonlight, it expresses its characters in all of their traits, and it makes you feel empathy because you understand, rather than just plainly telling you like, hey, this is the problem.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like the difference between like McDonald's putting a rainbow on a Big Mac and New York City banning police officers from being at Pride until 2025. It's like something is just like being said, and then there's like an action happening and like something taking place to like put it. Yeah. That's where we're at with that. So it's really dope that Moonlight was this movie that kind of set this off for you, because like I said, it's a fantastic movie. I feel like I don't think I know anybody that had that's seen it that didn't like it. So like, but to kind of move on a bit more, like I'm gonna ask a question that might be a little more complicated for you, which is when did you first fall in love with music?
Man, so I think back to when I was 4. I was 3-4 years old, and the first songs and albums that I can always remember, it's always a core set of albums that made me fall in love with it. It was 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Tryin', which was like the Superman fucking album, which is like, it's so funny. He starts off saying, I don't want to say nothing that the DA might get me caught in court for. And then on Heat, he was like, I don't care if the DA hear this. I will kill you. I ain't playing. But
How to Rob is on that album, right?
No, it's not.
Okay,
no, How to Rob was its own single.
Oh, fuck me. Never mind.
But it was Get Rich or Die Tryin'. It was G Unit's Beg for Mercy. It was Lloyd Banks' Hunger for More.
Wow.
Karma was the big song on there. And I'll get to why here in a minute. But it was Young Buck Straight Out of Cashville. It was T.I.'s Trap Music. And Cameron's Purple Haze, but to a lesser extent. Those were the big albums for me at that 4-year-old stage. And then You know, I get to 5, and that's when I like start really like I can associate memories with them more, whether I get Chris Brown's album at the Walmart for the first time, or I remember my granddad when he played Late Registration, and or it might have been the album or Touch the Sky. All I know is Touch the Sky came on, and he reacts in elation, and he turns around while he's driving a Lincoln specifically, and he's driving, and he turns around, he's like, "What you know about this grandson?" And I was like, "Granddad, this is Kanye West." He was like, no, but the song that he's using on the song,
right,
and
it's the Curtis Mayfield song, right?
Yeah, and then the da, 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 and then like, but you know, it's those moments where you really start internalizing the music that you're listening to. But I think the time that I really like, I was in love with it, but then I knew that this would just be my personality flat out, was the Graduation Curtis album duel. And
yeah, that was a moment.
That was, I think that defined my music fandom outright, where I was like legitimately invested. Like it wasn't just music that I rocked with on TV. It was like, oh, this is a competition.
So what side were you on?
I was on, listen, I was 50 Cent was Superman. So I was like, listen, Superman's gonna knock anybody that you put in front of him. So I'm like, 50 Cent got this. But I watch it, and it's week by week. You watch the first single, I don't remember in order, but like, you think about the singles from Curtis. It was I Get Money. It was Amusement Park. I Get Money was good. Amusement Park was meh. There was another one.
AO Technology, right?
Well, yeah, and then I was going to say AO Technology. There was
my fault.
There was another one, but AO Technology, and I listened to AO Technology. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is 50 Cent doing? And then like side by side, you see Kanye, Stronger, Good Life, Flashing Lights, Can't Tell Me Nothing. I'm like, oh, and but even that, up to that point, I'm like, Kanye got the better songs, but like 50's still gonna win this. Come on, it's 50. And I never forget this. My dad was coming to visit me, and he bought Curtis because he knew how much like I wouldn't shut up about this. And we bought Curtis, we listened to it, and I reacted so deflated because the album was so mid it hurt. I still think it's only like 4 good songs in there. It's wow. the one with Mary J. Blige on it, which is one of 50's best songs, flat out. The Robin Thicke one, because I've always argued that 50 Cent was at his best with the melody shit. But it was that, I Get Money, and then it was something else on there. But Kanye's Graduation, the only song that I didn't like on there was Drunk and Hot Girls, which even now it's like, it's weird enough for me to appreciate. Like, I'm just like, oh, this is bizarre, but like it works. But I guess all of this comes to say, like, I fell in love with music just because a lot of my favorite songs were either beyond hard, or it was the sweetest melodies you can think of. Like Karma, probably my favorite genre of music for so long is the rap and R&B combo that they used to do. That
Let's
always
talk about it.
You know, the one for the ladies, quote unquote. Yeah. That was the one for me. I was like, oh yeah, Karma. Because like, what's so funny about that song is, you know, Lloyd Banks is talking about courting this girl or whatever. And then the singer on there, he's like, I am the one you did not pass me off every time I try. And then at the end of it, he was like, I'm down for a one night stand because I'll get it any way that I can get it. But just remember, I am not your man, woman. I'm like, sheesh, but he sure sounds good on this. Oh, but yeah, it's the sweet melodies, and no matter what they're saying, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the sweetest, most lovely sound I've ever heard. It was those...
So
go ahead.
No, I keep on cutting you off. I'm really sorry.
To be honest, my thought like went to a complete halt after that.
So I just wanted to bring up the fact that like Lloyd Banks really had like he had those in the tuck. Like he had so many, like the song he made with Olivia.
Bro,
the song
he was so good at it.
And he was, and that was the remix because that was her song. Like she got him on the remix. So that's I'm blanking on the name of the song right now. Shit. It'll come back to me. But like that was one of my, like I remember hearing that song for the first time with him on it specifically, and that busted my whole head open. I love that song to this day. So I'm happy you brought up Karma because that's definitely on that wave.
It was always the most like more R&B, sweeter centric rap music because I rocked with the invincibility of rappers back then when I was a kid, but like the sweeter, more tender side of like Want to Get to Know You, of Smile. Like those were the songs where I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing that I've ever heard. Because then I'm like, oh my gosh. And what's so weird is Lloyd Banks was so good at them, and he has the wildest monotone. Like he'll rap super duper hard and super duper flat or whatever, but he always sounded good over sweeter stuff because I guess the contrast is good.
Right. And you could say the same thing about 50 too, because 50 had Best Friend, which is one of my which actually might be one of my favorite 50 Cent songs ever. I love that song.
Yeah.
And like that contrast, especially at that time, like people weren't really, well, not to say that people weren't doing it like that, because they were, but like it felt more novel because it wasn't like the market wasn't saturated with it yet.
Everyone had to be hard and shit. Like everybody, like you like you know, there was Ja Rule, but like Ja Rule was like, oh, thugs need love too. But 50 Cent, he was like, but that's what I really called them. It's the thugs need love too songs. Like Ja Rule specialized in it. 50 Cent, I think, probably perfected it on some instances. And it's so fun. It's so funny that he jacked that. But I think about like he's so good. He was so good, and he's so charismatic and charming enough on those songs where he could pull off Window Shopper, and he could take Mace out on a date in the music video, and I'd be like, that's just tender affection right there.
Like Ja Rule had like the Put It On Me and all that shit. But then it's just
what's so funny about Ja Rule is that I think about oh my gosh, it was Always on My Mind, Always on Time, and Ashanti starts off, I'm not always there when you call, and then Ja Rule hits it with the ad lib, buckshots, and I'm like, buckshots? Why? But I was just like, why are we hitting buckshots on the sweet Ashanti hook right now?
So you at a 12, bro. Like you got to bring it down to like a 5. Like you got to relax.
Or like what's love with Fat Joe and Ja Rule? It was like what's love got to do with it? I'm like, it could have been just a question, what's love? But then Ja Rule answered, what's love got to do with it? Like, bro, calm down. Ashanti all soft and whatnot, you like overpowering the spot. See, 50 Cent, he was smarter than that. That's why he won the beef, because he knew how to fall back. Ja Rule was just trying to be like, I'm hard. Like 50 Cent ain't have to prove he was hard.
He wanted to be like Diddy, dancing in the videos and shit. Just like he had to be in the mix at all times. Like I'm here.
I'm here. Exactly. He had to be in the spotlight, bro. I'm the rapper too. I'm the star, and which is so funny. It's so funny the way that Evolution came out, because DMX was the guy there, and then Ja Rule was like, I want some of the DMX stuff, and then Ja Rule, he started getting his wave. He ran with it, and 50 Cent was like, I think about how he looked at that landscape. And I shout out Shea Serrano and Jinx. They talked about this with the Get Rich or Die Tryin joint. But 50 Cent looked at that landscape, and he saw Jay-Z, Nelly, all the people that were popping back then. He was like, can't go after Jay-Z and Nas. That seems counterproductive. Nelly's too popular. Who is the weak link here? And then laser vision on Ja Rule. He was like, cool, I'm gonna ruin this man's life. And then that happened.
Fucking 6 degrees of swagger jacking. It's amazing. Just like that's what history is all about. And yeah, shout out to Shay and Jinx's joint, because I haven't listened to it yet, but I was really excited to see that they were even doing something like that, because if I trust any two people to do some like real like CSI level analysis on like an album like that, definitely them. So shout out to
Yeah.
them.
And I don't know if you'll like ask me about writing or whatnot, but like
I will.
what we'll certainly get there. Maybe you'll transition, but Jinx and those Complex guys were the reason that I wanted to get into music media, and the fact that I thought it was tangible. And so I think about Jinx. It was Frasier, it was Emily Oberg, Sean Evans, and there's somebody else I'm spacing on, but it was those people that was really getting my interest in music media. And I was a Complex kid by then. And then like I was actually reading, I bought Shea Serrano's The Rap Yearbook, and then I read it. And every time I've said this, people like misinterpreted it as shade in the text, but like I read The Rap Yearbook and I was like, I can do that. Like I like I read it and I was like, this is basically everything that I do every day anyway. It's just on print.
Right. Yeah. And no, I'm happy you brought that up because I was literally gonna ask you when you started to get into music media. So you were already thinking ahead. So
Yeah,
no,
it
I
was
appreciate that.
it was complex. It was that complex, base thing where you had a rotating cast of people. It was, the Jinx, the Frasers, the Emily Obergs, Tamara Dia, that was her.
Right.
She was the other one. Frasier, Jinx, Emily Oberg, Sean Evans, all those people. And you see that rotating cast of people in the news or whatever. And I'm like, man, I want to do that. And then I look at Complex. And what's so funny is that they were like, oh, yeah, you'll need to go to college and do this, that, and the third. And which, in hindsight, now that I'm a writer, bunch of BS, but I'll leave that there. I can get into Complex however I wish.
Right.
But yeah, it was that, but I didn't really think it was tangible. And then um, there was this radio station, shout out to the English teacher, that was like, hey, you should, because then I had to, gosh, why am I spacing? I had to do community service hours. And luckily the radio station counted for that. And I did the sports broadcasting for like a couple months, but then the head lady over there at the radio station was like, yeah, I can give you a show. We can count it as your community service hours. It's fine. And then boom, I had my own radio show. And I picked the person that I wanted to do it with. I ended up falling in love with them. And then, that kept going. And then I was like, I'm watching, my degree of like what I wanted interview wise probably wasn't very high, but I was watching like how comfortable Charlemagne made certain artists feel or certain people walk in. And like the people that rocked with Charlemagne like really was comfortable there. And I was like, I want to do that. Or I looked at Charlemagne and I was like, I can do that too. And boom, I start interviewing people, not for the radio station, but I'd start recording interviews there while I had shows in the tuck to release for the next few weeks. And then I upload them to YouTube. I end up leaving the radio station because I ended up moving. And then I'm like, well, shit, I can't keep doing the interview thing because that's not going anywhere. I don't have the recording set up, X, Y, and Z. So then I moved to Houston. I start working for a little bit. And then I start reading Yo Phillips articles. I started reading everybody at a DJ booth. You were a part of that. Yo Phillips, Donna. Like I read a
Gods.
lot. I read Yo Phillips was the one for me where I was like, oh yeah, no, I definitely want to do that. And then I would read his stuff, and then I would read the Shea Serrano books, and I was like, I can give writing a try. And then I picked up a dingy laptop. Yeah, I guess I could tell the story again. The first time that I tried writing, I had wanted to tell the graduation 50 Cent thing. And the concept that I had for it was, what if 50 Cent won? And briefly, like the first part of it, I set the stage for what it was. And then the second part, I answered the question like, all right, well, what happens? And my argument was that 50 Cent was eventually going to run into a wall where he has to encounter Lil Wayne. And I was confident that 50's ego was big enough for him to challenge Lil Wayne at the time. And had he
Right.
beat Kanye, he would have been like, yeah, let's face Lil Wayne and the Carter 3, one of the biggest rap albums this century.
Like,
And he would have got blown out of the water because whatever he came out with next was going to be a bunch of bullshit. But I made that argument, and then I released it. Just, he's floating around on Twitter, but I'll put it out there just because I don't feel like he should have did that to me. But the top 5 rap website guy, I'm like, yo, can you host this? He's like, cool. He gets back to me after 3 months. I send it to him. We're waiting and waiting and waiting. It finally releases after way too long. And, I'm understanding at first because I'm like, all right, well, he's busy. He's working on his own stuff. So I'm waiting for 3 months. And that comes out. I'm super hyped because I'm like, all right, cool. I've got something out there. But he was like, all right, well, I split the article into 2 parts. And then he was like, we're going to run up the numbers on the first part. And I'm like, all right, cool. Then 4 months go by and I keep poking like, yo, like, fam, can we get the second part going? He was like, the number's still going. He was like, this is the most traffic that I'm getting on the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, whatever, man. And, eventually the second part comes out. But at this point, I'm like super deflated because I'm like, is this seriously what the fuck happens? Like in this writing shit? And at that point, I was like, man, I just want to get this out myself. Can we just get on with this so that I can move on to the next thing? And at that point, I was like, well, I don't know where to release my thoughts. And for a little bit, I was like, I threw it on like a Google Doc, but like that wasn't sustainable. And I didn't know what to do. So I was kind of burnt by the writing thing, but I knew that I cared about music enough to where I wanted to express my thoughts. And then I read Matt Ritchie's NC Views. I follow him
shout out to
at
Matt.
some point. I follow Matt at some point and I read whatever comes out of there. And I'm like, yo, I had hit him out of random. I'm like, yo, can you let me write something for your blog or whatever? He's like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, word. And then I like write something in a few days because I worked super quick back then because I knew what idea I had and I knew how to execute upon it. And then I give it to him. He edits it like a day or 2 later. And then he was like, cool, I can run this tomorrow. And I was like, what? Like, I was so accustomed to waiting for months and months and months for something to come out. And he was like, yeah, no, I'll run this tomorrow. And I was like, cool, keep going. And then I wrote something else for NC Views like a month or 2 later, but I hadn't really taken it seriously because I was like, all right, well, I don't know where this is going. And once my birthday came around, I turned, this was 20, so I turned 19. And that day I released, like, I was doing playlists and shit, and I released an article, and all that came out, and I was like, okay, people are really rocking with what I'm doing. And then New Year's Eve that day, I find out about Medium, and this is when I start taking it seriously because I look at Medium, I'm like, I could just put out whatever I want whenever the fuck I want to do it. And then boom, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm a write on Medium. And then there lies the next year where I put out something every 2-3 weeks.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that's I actually, yeah, I really want to get into that. But before we do, I have one more question before we move into where I think we're headed. Like for you personally, like was there ever a period of time where you consciously linked like film and music together in your head? Like was there ever a point where they just kind of, it was just like, oh damn, these two things inform each other?
I knew that they went together with Stomp the Yard, but I didn't know how important they were until I like really paid attention. Where with music, I think about that Moonlight scene where they put Classic Man, Chopped and Screwed, or I think about the beautiful music and all these other films, and I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. And then I would look at musicals and I'm like, okay, music is just as fundamental as like the storytelling part of it, because you can't really communicate the feeling without music, or the absence of music is also important. So I think just hearing music that you rocked with on soundtracks, and you see just how impactful they are. Like I think about the Boys in the Hood soundtrack, and I think about the music, the crazy sax when Ricky gets shot. I think it was the sax, but it was, when Ricky gets shot, it was like da, da, and like, like you feel the travesty of it all. And or like you'll see Above the Rim and you'll hear Tupac's Pain at the end of it. It comes on like 2 or 3 times in the movie, and it's probably my favorite song of his. But like you hear all these songs and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like it doesn't just have to be albums. Or like the Get Rich or Die Tryin' movie, like that was probably the big one, because I was like, cool, I get new 50 Cent music on this movie, where it's like, the acting and the story I didn't really care about, but like, 50 Cent was being 50 Cent. So
yeah, it's the 50 Cent movie, of course. Yeah,
he was trying his hardest to be 50 Cent. He was trying to be. It's so weird. Like he couldn't just be himself in the movie. He had to be an actor.
Yeah. He was like, this was the first step he took before he decided to turn himself into a literal video game character with bulletproof and blood on the sand and shit. So this is
which fits him so much more. Like I don't know why when he would do movies and whatnot, like he was like, all right, well I need to get in the character. I'm like, 50, this is literally you. Or it was like, no, but this is not totally my story, but it's mostly you, and these are your songs, and this is more or less the same Superman thing, but he decided on being flat and lifeless on that movie.
right. And then he was also in that Home of the Brave movie, where he was in that like army movie where like I think he did something like really specific. Like he had like he did like some like really specific kind of method acting that he thought was gonna like boost it. I can't remember exactly. Like, I heard this.
Was it the one where he's in the bed and like he's all skinny and whatnot?
I think that's yeah. He lost a bunch of weight. I think that's what it was. and he lost a bunch of weight, and he thought that was gonna be the like. He did that because he was like going for like the Christian Bale machinist type shit, and everybody hated the movie. It made no money, and it got no awards recognition. And like it's just like
skinny for no reason.
Right. It's just like, bro, just go make Blood on the Sand too. Like, what are you doing with your time?
So he's basically the rap equivalent to Jared Leto.
Yeah.
Jared Leto just doing shit just to do it. Like I remember not liking Jared Leto because I watched Mr. Nobody on Netflix, and that is one of the most bewildering movies I've ever seen. Because I'm just like,
weird ass movie shit.
Because I'm like, what's the point of this? Like he's back in time. He's an old man withering away with like weird timeline stuff that none of it ever goes together. And I'm like, what is happening? This is a bunch of drivel. I don't know why I didn't turn it off, but I was like, oh, Mr. Nobody, it looked like it had some sort of purpose to it, and it didn't.
Right. Yeah, just to run back to the film soundtrack thing, like for me, if I like, I'm trying to think of like, there's like a handful that I really like loved growing up that kind of gave me this feel. Like my 3 I would say were the Digimon the movie soundtrack, because that's where I first fell in love with ska, and like the whole shit was literally just rap, Fatboy Slim, and ska. And like that was my whole shit for a while. It was the Nutty Professor to the Clumps soundtrack that had the Janet Jackson song, the Music Soul Child song, Missing You, I forget who sings it, but that song, and like the LL Cool J joint at the end. It's a great soundtrack. And Idlewild. There we go.
That's a good one, because I don't think that I've actually ever seen that movie formally, but I had always heard of it.
It's so good.
Like, that's what my friends said. Like one of my best friends, he's like, yo, like Idlewild is that movie, and he like he lives and dies by that album being way better than people give it credit for. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, at some point I'm gonna give it a watch.
You ever see Harlem Nights before?
The one with Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor.
Yeah,
I've had that on my queue for God knows how long. I've been meaning to go through a lot of those Eddie Murphy movies in general ever since I read Abe Beam's series on it.
Yeah, and also shout out to Abe as well. But yeah, so like for me personally, I like them both, but I think that Idlewild is the movie that Harlem Nights is trying to be. I think it's a way more interesting movie than Harlem Nights personally. Like I love them both. Like please don't get it twisted. I love both those movies. I like Idlewild more. That's
That's
just me.
wild. That's wild because like you would think that Harlem Nights is kind of that movie, considering you have two of the funniest comedians ever in it, and then like it just doesn't end up. It's weird because like Eddie Murphy had a few of those movies where he was just like I think about Life with Martin Lawrence, and I was
Mm.
watching it and I was like, I was thinking this was going to be funnier, and it just wasn't nearly as like I was expecting belly laughs the whole way, and it was like weirdly serious for a lot of it. And I was like, why is this movie like this?
The same thing with 1,000 Words, the Eddie Murphy movie where he's yeah. But like that movie was trying so hard to be funny, but it was also just
But like
like
that's such a bad concept in general. Like you give a character like you give somebody like Eddie Murphy, it was like you've only got 1,000 words, should be good. Give the funny guy 1,000 word limit, and then I would like you to make like he's not like slapstick. He's not
nah.
like he's a funny guy, but he's not like a slapstick guy. Like Robin Williams probably could have pulled something like that off.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy is a talky dude. So like,
Yeah,
yeah, no.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
because like he played Donkey and he played the dragon Mushu, I think his name was.
In Mulan, yeah, Mushu.
Yeah, in Mulan, and like he's a talky character. So you try and take a talky person who makes all these quips, and you're like, all right, I would like you to just be quiet and find this out.
Like,
Like he's Mr. Bean or some shit. Like
yeah, Eddie Murphy is no one's idea of Mr. Bean, or at least he shouldn't be.
no,
That's so funny. So yeah, so now that we covered that, let's bring it back to the writing because we got to talk about this Good and the Ugly series because like bro, like it's just such a like I remember like I don't remember the first one of them I saw, but like I love the idea of just like going through a year and just picking out all these songs and seeing like not just what they meant to you, but like what they meant to that particular time. Like it's just such a dope idea to just go about it for like year by year by year and not just focus on one song but just get like a handful and just like you get so granular with so many of these songs and so many of these eras in a way that lets people know that you like you just take like we were talking about like taking care before and like with the passion and craft like that's where like the care and the passion and the craft come in when it comes to your writing specifically for me or at least it's where it first that's where I first really started to notice it. So like where did that idea for the Good and the Ugly initially come from?
man. Well, for starters, I didn't expect you to ask me about that series because like it's a lot of that traction from it was very hit or miss. It would either hit super hard or it'd be like a handful of people. So it was like either niche or it was all encompassing. But thank you for asking about that series because I had so much fun doing it. And I think it exercised a lot of my pen and figuring out how I wanted to write doing that. And I clearly got so much better like the more ingrained I was in the year. Like 1999 was different because like people lived through 1999 more than I did. And but like once I get to like '08, it's like all right, like, I remember where I was with each of these songs.
Right.
And I guess the idea came from I was watching another one of my big influences in terms of like how I wanted to think about pop music was Todd in the Shadows. I would watch a lot of his videos, and I was like, yeah, I want to cover music, but I wanted to make it more than just like, all right, well, here's the best and here's the worst. So I was like, okay, well, I can just cover any fucking year that I want, but I can take it back to where I was born, 1999, the very end of it. So I kind of got that off on a technicality, but I was like, all right, well, let's take it to where I was born and let's move on. And we'll look at how I wanted to look at the trends that went along. Like the further and further I got along, at first it was like, all right, I'm covering these amazing songs and whatnot. But like I noticed the trends and how it went. Like you eventually you get to the 2010s and you go from the big club boom at the beginning of it, and then you get to 2014 where it's like very flat, very sad, which I still blame. Like, I will not go on a long tangent about Lords Royals, but if you know, you know. But
Yeah.
I like
Interesting song.
I wanted to look at the I wanted to not only look at the trends that went on, how crunk was at that time, but I also wanted to look at, like, all right, well, these songs were good to me because of X, Y, and Z, or like these were how I felt about it when I was younger, X, Y, and Z. I wanted to look at all these songs at the core of what it was, and I got so much better at it once I like really started finding my groove, and I like really knew about these songs. Like, my one of my best blurbs was about Lil Wayne's Lollipop, and that song like fascinated me. So I was like, all right, well, why does it fascinate me? And I broke it down like XYZ, and why it was such a strange song, and like why it didn't work in its era, and da 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 da. I wanted to capture all of these songs at its core and the context around them.
Yeah. And especially considering where music media was at the time a lot of these songs came out, like especially like with like digital media still kind of finding its footing and not being the like it didn't have everything in a chokehold then like it did now, or like it
Yeah,
does now. And yeah, I just really love the idea of going back and kind of really putting a lens, like a mic, like forget a lens, a fucking microscope on that whole specific time period. um One of the blurbs that really like, I don't know why, but one of the ones I always remember is just like you talking about, I think it was Uptown Funk. Was it Uptown Funk? Was it oh no, or no, maybe it wasn't Uptown Funk. It was something Bruno Mars though. I'm
mm,
already forgetting what year it was, but like
it was either 24, because the ones that I remember doing for the best was for the best side of it, it was Locked Out of Heaven, and it was 24K Magic.
it was 24K Magic. My fault. It was
Yeah.
24K Magic. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
like
that one was weird because like I understand people's complaints more so about like what Bruno Mars was doing, and I think about it, but at the same time, like I look at Bruno and I'm like, this dude's pretty harmless. Like, he doesn't come in this as the leeching type. Like, there's a
yeah,
big difference between how Bruno Mars came in and how Miley Cyrus came in 2013.
yeah,
Like, it's a bit
definitely.
like Miley Cyrus was going through like the rebellious phase or whatever, and she was still trying to find herself and da 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 da. But Bruno Mars, he was like, listen, this is kind of what I wanted to make the whole time. So he was basically like, like a boat party type atmosphere, or like
Yeah.
the Las Vegas residency type shit.
Right.
And
And yeah,
like
that's cool.
he specializes in that, and I don't understand. Like, I never really understood why people hated it so much, because I was like, all these songs hit, and like you can argue like, okay, well, this is mom music, but like mom music can hit too, as long as
Yeah.
the music's good. Like, I'm not complaining about it as long as you don't come through on some BS and the music's good. I'm not tripping. But if your music's bad and you're coming through on some BS, I mean, come on. Like, that's where I look at you like how I look at Logic.
Yeah, like you're asking, yeah, it's like you're asking to get snapped on at that point. Like
Exactly. But if the music's good, it's like, all right, well, maybe we can ask some questions, but
yeah.
that's what I like really slaps right now.
See,
You know,
yeah, like that was the thing with me, because I learned that he was Filipino. And like I obviously had questions and some things that I was thinking about. I talked about it with a lot of people, like Yo, shout out to Yo and my girl Kai Miller. We talked about this a little bit, like when the news kind of first broke. And like the music is good. Like he's not my favorite, but I'm not mad at Uptown Funk. Not mad at That's What I Like. Not mad at 24K Magic. I really like a lot of his original. Well, Grenade is kind of cheesy, but I like it. Like
oh my
I'm just like
gosh. See,
it's
I'm the opposite. I hated pretty much everything. Any original idea he had, like, I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I
yeah.
listened to the Lazy song and I was like, oh my goodness, this
See,
is.
You're right. You're right.
I'm like, he doing the freaking teach me how to Dougie with the freaking, like, for some reason there's people in monkey masks, and I'm just like, something snuggy, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what purpose does this serve?
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, okay, well, now we've got to Locked Out of Heaven. And I was like, look at that, some personality.
Right.
That's all I needed, was some personality and some care in it. And with 24K Magic, so good because there was clearly so much fun in the song. So, like,
Right.
I think if you dislike that song, you are inherently negative.
Yeah, you don't like fun. Yeah, it's the same thing with Finesse. That's why I love Finesse so much. It's another real.
Come on,
It
like,
don't
that's
make
a
no.
hit. It's a hit, bro. That's a hit. Like, you gotta be. How you gonna sit there listening to that Finesse hook and you got the mean face the whole time talking about, you're tripping in Finesse? What does that even mean? Like, you know what it means. Stop being grumpy.
I remember the real New Jack swing. Like, shut your dumb ass up. Like
it wasn't even like, it's so, and it's not even like he's coming at it from a BS place. Like, he clearly cares about it. Like, if he didn't care about it, it'd be like, all right, well, this ain't Teddy Riley or nothing. But like this ain't Teddy Riley, but this is fun. But like, if it wasn't fun, then like we can crack it all day. Like, all you got to do is just be competent at what you do.
Right.
And that's with like 24K Magic. I love that song just because of the voice box on it. That one added so much texture and so much fun to it. But I got off your point. To that 24K Magic blurb, I wanted to look at it because I was completely shocked that everybody was so upset that Bruno Mars won that year. I look back on it, I was like, wait, people are way more angry than I thought they were. And I was like, but this album's good. Like, what else was nominated that year? It was Kendrick's Damn. Yeah. It was Hove's 444. Right?
Yeah.
It was 24K Magic, and then it's something else, and then it was the Lord album. And I would have got it if it was the Lord album, though it's good. I do understand it because it's not as good as Damn or 444. Right. Or 24K Magic. But 24K Magic was a great album, and it was a very fun album. So I looked at it, I was like, why is everybody mad at
it? Yeah, I might have been one of those people, and I'm kind of glad that I cooled off in that regard. But like, like, all I'm gonna say, the only other thing I'm gonna say about Bruno Mars is that it makes complete sense that he would go and make a project with Anderson .Paak, which is like about to happen. I don't know when they're gonna drop it, but like, it makes complete sense. Like, they kind of they operate from the same sensibility. Even if I think I've always been more impressed by Anderson than I was with Bruno Mars. As much as I like his, like, I like the stuff I like, but like, Anderson was always really a lot more impressive to me. Even considering how mid I thought his last two projects were. I wasn't feeling Oxnard or Ventura like that. Ventura has more better songs on it, but like, Oxnard was just like, that shit was just like an Apple commercial for like 65 minutes, and like, yeah, fucking Dre overmixed it. He overproduced it. It was too glossy, too clean. Like, Oxnard was just it was a miss.
It was basically what I imagine people thought Bruno comes in and does.
See,
like,
okay,
like that's what it sounds like to me. So like, you strip away a lot of Anderson's musicality and a lot of his charm. So it's basically like, all right, Malibu is so good because you can hear where it's at. But then you go to Oxnard and it's like, hey, like, why is this so flat? Like, this is,
yeah.
It's the difference between like a Malibu beach and like a tanning bed, maybe.
Right. Yeah. No, that's perfect.
Like it's two different. It's two different experiences, and it's like, one's, you get more experience out of being at that beach and like smelling the ocean than being in a tanning bed and just getting burnt up. Like, it's different.
Somebody's spraying the fake ocean water smell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what would I don't know why I completely blanked out right there. But yeah, with Bruno and Anderson, that album's gonna be great. It's one of the only albums that I think can touch the. It's that one and the Isaiah Rashad album that I think is gonna be. Those are the ones that I think can hit album of the year for me. Those are probably the only ones. Right now Topaz Jones has it.
Right. Yeah. Shout out to Jersey Boy Topaz. Yeah, that album is anybody who hasn't listened to Don't Go Telling Your Mama, go listen to that, because
I've
that's
shared it with so many friends, and every time, like, I always tell me what you think of Black Tame.
because
And
everyone
like,
loves that song.
bro, it's the song. And I'm like, listen, if you gonna push any song on there, you gotta push Black Tame. You have to.
Yeah, and like it's the hook too. Like everyone sings it, like, because like
I really wanna be your
yeah,
love.
love,
Come on.
like, oh geez, like, yeah, like that screams like outdoor, with like, it screams like outdoor function with a drink in your hand, just like, and it's like, and like the auntie sway, like that's like,
Or
you
like
like
the Uncle Two
grab
Step.
someone's neck, like, yeah, Uncle Two Step, you grab someone's neck and y'all just go, like maybe not right now because of COVID, but like at some point, like at some
Yeah,
point.
no, very very soon. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's eventually gonna get it, and we're all gonna link, and it's gonna be fun.
Right. Hell yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely the type of vibes we're gonna be on. I'm really like, before we move on, I liked the Bruno or let me say, the Bruno and Anderson .Paak song was not my favorite. I thought it was fine. It didn't really like move, like it didn't move the needle the way Black Tame moved the needle for me. Like it like, and like I love that type of music too. It's just like, it just didn't, like, I'm excited to hear the album, but it just didn't move me to the point where I was like, yeah, this is good. Like there's a video of Pharrell working with Justin Timberlake on Man in the Woods, and they're in the studio, and Pharrell looks him dead in his fucking face and says, "That right there is a smash," and like holds out the word smash for a long ass time.
Pharrell's
And
such a
like,
fucking liar. Why you lie to
yeah,
him like that? That album had no hits.
that album is so gross.
There's
That
no
album is
there's no smashes on it. I've never heard a more uncool album in my
like
life.
ever. It's like remarkable how, like, it's remarkable how unhip and just like, so it's like really, I don't even know. I don't even
This
know.
the same dude who made Justified 2020 Experience, Future
Yeah,
Sex
it's,
Love Sounds. Like, come on, you the same person, and now you making
well,
that? Like,
he's,
that's
I don't know that he's the same person. He's a dad now. He's a husband. Like,
but
like this
like
is definitely his like dad
he was
album, you know?
okay. Okay, 2020 Experience though. I think he was a father then, and like, I don't know. People, this is weird. I didn't know that people disliked. I didn't know people dislike Suit and Tie either, and this leads into my theory that I think people are so vehemently opposed to suits. Like, there's nothing people hate more than being told to wear a suit.
Because like I get that, because like people want to wear a suit if they want to wear a suit. Like, people don't want to have to be told what to do.
Come on,
Like,
man! Like, I like a nice tailored suit. Like, suit and
yeah,
tie
no,
is
no, no.
a nice suit and tie. Like, the suit and tie song is crazy, but everybody was like, "Man, suit and tie is corny and da 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 da." Like, we acting like it's classic, man, right now. Come on, but like suit and tie, and like that's the last time that he was cool, and it was like
Yeah, I'll give you that.
that was the last time that he was cool. That 2020 Experience album, and it was like ever since then, it was watching the cool guy turn into a husk of himself and trying to find it again.
Turning into a dad. Like, I'm telling you, like, Man in the Woods is his dad album. Like, that's the one, like, he literally went to go like live in a cabin in Montana with Jessica Biel and their kids, like away from civilization. Like, all those songs are about like white water rafting, and just like,
Yeah, I think
it's
about
dad music.
I think about like in Oklahoma, or like a Oklahoma Walmart whenever I think about Man of the Woods. Like,
That's wild.
I think about some BS like that where like nobody lives there except for super white locals.
That's
Like,
so funny.
that's what I, and like them get down at the hoedown or whatever. Like,
Right. And like the thing that's so interesting about that album is that it's not very good, but like it's like it was being marketed as this like departure to like become this like full-blown country album, and like it's not. Like not
It's
fully.
not.
It's like because like he really tried to combine like the like there's definitely like country aspects to it, but like the Neptunes have production on there. Like he's working with Timbo again. Like there's like there's so many musical influences that like you know, Craig Jenkins, the really amazing writer, he mentioned in his review that like kind of people putting that album off as like exclusively some white people shit. Like when it came to like the country affiliation was kind of fucked because it like insinuates that like black people only live in cities, and it's like and it's like yeah, you're right. But like at the
Listen,
same
look, but
time, like
if you in the country, bro, like it's plenty people out in the backwoods, bro.
yeah,
It's
right.
like that's just where you happen to be at.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shout out Craig though. Like I've been wanting to talk to him about
Yeah, me.
writing for God knows how long.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But yeah, like that. Yeah, like Timberlake and Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak and that whole little like that's just really it's just interesting to see how like the machine, either the machine or just like time, kind of like seeps into the way you create music and just like changes you. Like going from Justified to Man in the Woods, going from like I would even go back further with Anderson to Venice, then to
Which
Malibu.
oh my God, Venice was
I
it was such a confusing album, and it has one of the worst songs I've ever heard on it. I was
What
like, what
song?
are we doing? It was the drugs one.
Oh no, I love that song.
It was one of the ugliest songs I've ever heard in my life. I was like, this is appalling on many fronts.
You heard the
Like,
Knowledge remix of it?
yeah, and it was better, but like, I don't know, like, it's only so many flowers you can put on a pile of shit before you realize, like, it's still just a pile of shit.
That hurts, but okay.
It's so. I'm like, why does this sound like this?
Yeah, like it really gave me some like voice box, like vocoder vibes, kinda.
Right, but
But
like it's like if you took that voice box and you recorded it in the sewer.
I don't know. That shit gets me bucks sometimes. I don't know. Like I heard it live. I heard it live once,
It probably
and
works better live than it does, but like the scene, like the audio version of it, like in the phone, like I don't know why it sounds like that.
me either. I don't have an answer. I'm not even gonna jump out on a limb to defend it. But yeah, like for me, I would rather listen to an album of 12 drugs over most of Oxnard outside of like
Mm,
over like two songs.
that's
Like
interesting.
the two.
That kind of leads into the idea, like, what's worse? Would you rather be like it would you rather it be so bad that it's offensive, or would you rather it be boring? And I
Right.
guess the Todd in the Shadows, I was watching a video and he had one hell of a quote. He was like, I respect people who care enough about my feelings to hurt them. But the worst thing that you could do to me is bore me.
Yeah. Nah,
And
that's
that, like
that's
I guess like I guess that's why I hate my worst albums I've ever heard are uh Speeding Bullet to Heaven and
damn.
and Logic Supermarket.
Wow. Yeah,
Which
those are
don't let me get on that tangent, because I will sit up here and bash Logic for 15 minutes. I
son.
won't disrespect the wonderful nature of Real Notes and how wonderful this all is by trashing Logic for so long.
Son. We'll do that another time. I wish I had more time to do that right now, but we just don't. But let's just end it by saying that Supermarket is fucking garbage, and I can't believe that anybody let him put that album out.
And bro, he put out a book for it. Like,
Yeah, and the book was a bestseller. Ugh, there's just so much.
He put
That's
his weight. He put his weight behind that shit. Like,
yeah, that's a whole podcast episode in and of itself. Damn, I wish. So, um, the, you mentioning, I can't remember what the transition I was gonna do was gonna be, but I'm gonna just say it. One of my favorite pieces of writing that you've done in a while, or just in general, is just like is the whole when you had your father review the Moneybag Yo album for the column you wrote. Like it's like
yeah.
I'm like, I'm a little biased because you kind of talked me through the process of writing it, so I kind of watched it come to life. But
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a really big proponent of like bridging the generational gaps and like getting parents or like older, like OGs or whoever to just like sit down and like listen to something like that and just kind of like break
Mm-hmm.
it down and like note, like influences or references and just like general like, hey, do you like this? Like I'm really big on that. I love doing that with my dad because he's 76 and he's kind of like he was already a grown man when rap started. So like I always love kind of bringing something that reminds him of a thing that he went through and be like, hey, this is cool. I think you'd like this. And he's like, yeah, this reminds me of XYZ. So like like your father had really interesting opinions about Moneybag Yo and the project.
Interesting is a good way to put it.
Yeah. So like I guess my question for you is like, were you surprised by the way your father reacted to all this shit or
Fuck no. Moneybag Yo is his guy. Like him and Future are his favorite rappers right now.
That's pretty fire.
And Future's in his like all-time list.
Wow.
Like if I remember correctly, I can pull it up on my phone because I have his all-time list. It was an article I wrote ages ago, but yeah, no, my pops grew up a street dude through and through. So I wanted to speak to the idea that there is a tangible feeling that you get from certain artists. And I do think that there is a regional disconnect to what that means. Like I think so, like the streets is the streets everywhere, but there's different cultures in which you exist in the streets. Like you couldn't compare. Like my dad doesn't think Nas is real, or he doesn't think he's real at all, or like
right.
He says that Jay-Z puts up a good front of realness, and I'm just like, Dad, Dad, I was like, these details are too. He was like, nah, but Nas was too. His argument was not his argument was Nas was like he was too young to really live through it. Like that was his argument with Wayne too. He was like, you was too young to really live this shit. Like you weren't. I'm gonna put him out there because it's just so funny. It was so messed up and it was so funny. I was like, Dad, BG and Wayne weren't too far off in age. He was like, yeah, but BG was a crackhead. And I was like,
stop.
he was like BG's a crackhead. And I was like, Dad, he was like, listen, it don't get much realer than crack. And I'm like, Jesus.
Like you're not wrong, but like, damn.
He said it don't get much realer than crack. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, you kind of got a point there.
I mean, yeah, but like you
don't have to say it. Like this sounds awful. All right, I got his list right here.
That's hilarious.
So and like you'll hear his list and you're like, all right, like that makes sense with who he is. Pac, Jeezy, Jay-Z, because he respects his lyrical talent.
Right.
Kanye, T.I., but I'll have to. This was back before T.I. was a sicko. Which I'll get into that if you want, but like that really broke my heart.
Yeah, man.
It hurt it really just did. Scarface, Ice Cube, Snoop, Master P. His big disclaimer with Master P, not off of lyrical skill, but off his overall success and enjoyment of it, which again, real shit. Like that's real rap. 50 Cent, Future, Wayne, lyrical again, UGK, 8 Ball. He made sure not to include MJG on this because he's a big 8 Ball guy, and Gucci.
Oh
And
wow,
like you hear that list and you're like, oh yeah, like you know what kind of guy he is off that.
you know what's funny? My favorite 8 Ball song ever is My Homeboy's Girlfriend. It's my favorite song and one of my favorite music videos ever. That song is just like Dirty Mac to the extreme. Like it's such a story. Like
Mm-hmm.
8 Ball is such an incredible storyteller, and like that beat is
So
just
good.
so, like oh man. Like I know everybody likes to talk about it on Twitter all the time, but like both 8 Ball and MJG are just I try not to use the word underrated anymore, but like man, they really just don't get
Nah,
the
but
respect they deserve.
keep
They
it
really,
real
really
though.
don't.
Like I
Like,
look at a lot of those artists from the South, and you're like, man, it's not like people not gonna give that the respect it deserves. Like
man,
there's like people like the common rap fan or whatever. Like they'll think of the South, they'll be like Outkast, maybe UGK, and
right?
then
Yeah, maybe.
yeah, like maybe UGK, but like you really think about it, like Project Pat is better than a lot of rappers that people would put on that
Mm.
all-time list. Coming out hard and Space Age pimping that song is better than a lot of rappers
Damn.
whole catalogs.
Yeah.
The 8 Ball double album, that's up there with some of the best double albums. If you ask my dad, he likes it more than Life After Death.
Woo! I mean, hey, I mean, like 8 Ball is a good artist to go for with that type of shit. I would really love to see a general, like, yeah. I just want more love for 8 Ball and MJG in particular, and of course the South in general, because yeah, like the South really doesn't get the respect it deserves outside of like the big, like outside of like like your Outcasts and your UGKs, and then like
Even today, like people will look at Lil Baby and they didn't give him the respect he deserved until the bigger
mm,
picture came out.
talk about
And
it.
like this all leads back, like I talk about, like I would like to not talk about regionalism so much, but it informs every bit of music that I've ever grew up on. Like
Yeah,
I grew up at the heart of regionalism being such a big thing. Like USDA album was bigger to me than whatever Nas came out in '06. But like it's a difference, and people were gonna look at it like, oh, this isn't deemed real because it doesn't follow XYZ template.
mm-hmm.
But like a lot of this shit is realer than you'll ever imagine. Like you don't know these experiences because you wasn't here, but these roots always trace back to the South. They always trace back to the
Right.
South.
And like another question I always like to ask people, especially when it comes to like realness, is like, what is real? You know,
I
because
I
like
wrote about
everyone's
that.
right. Yeah, I remember. Like everyone's definition of what real is different. And on top of that, like it's just crazy to me that like you can look at somebody's life experience, whatever it may be, especially if it's someone from an area that's kind of misunderstood and underappreciated, like like sections of the South tend to be, and just be
It's
like,
wild.
that's not real.
It's insane that you can put a value on that realness to begin with. You ain't live
Like
that. Like you
exactly.
if you ain't live it, then you can't like that's what I think my pops is like so strong with. Like he lived this, so he can understand Master P more than he can understand fucking
Kyle. Nah.
red. Yeah, or like I was gonna say like some New York rapper back then, but yeah, that works too. Like if you real, like you real, like you get like you gonna understand that every time. And Master P was spitting real shit. If he was
Yeah.
from that, if he was down south, you understood that. Hell, if he was from the Bay, he repped the Bay too. If he was from the Bay, you knew what he was talking about. If he was from the
Right.
South, you knew how crazy Project Pat was. Like I think Project Pat is leagues better than Nas ever was.
Mm.
That's my hot take. Not
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I've written about Nas too, and I think it says a lot how dicey his discography is. Because like it's weird. It's weird the grades in which you'll look at something, because Illmatic's one of the best rap albums ever, but he's also had some of the most lifeless albums we've heard in rap, like Nasir in 2018. Bad. Hip hop is
Yeah.
dead. underwhelming.
Yeah.
And
I
like
want to.
oh, go ahead.
Nasir is not very good, but it's got some of my favorite Nas songs on it. Like as an album, it's not great, but I love Fried Chicken. I love Queens Get the Money, which is produced by produced and maybe written by Jay Electronica. I can't remember. And
Not oh, you're talking about the Untitled record. No, I was talking about
oh,
Nasir,
sorry.
the one
The
in
Kanye
28,
joint.
the Kanye joint.
My fault.
Yeah. But with that album, it was like it's mixed. Like
That album's ass.
that
Nasir, it's ass.
oh yeah, that one's really bad. But like it's so much mixed stuff. Like ever since like you leave, it was written, and the best that you'll get from Nas is good, but you'll never get great or amazing ever again.
Yeah,
And
it's
people argue Stillmatic, but like I've always been kind of on Stillmatic.
I like Stillmatic, but to your point about that, it's really like we were talking about with the X-Men joints. It's good enough, you know, like Nas will get good enough, but never push past. Like we're never getting another Illmatic from Nas. It's never happening.
But like we'll look at I'll look at that Project Pat era, and I'm like,
yeah,
Ballers is wrapping circles around whatever Nas was doing back then.
Mm.
Like Ballers is putting what was it? I Am back then, or like Nostradamus.
Yeah,
it was one of those. Nostradamus is ass too. I can't believe that was an album. But I think about Mr. Don't Play. I think about Getty Green, and I'm like, okay, he's like better than a lot of people.
I don't blame you.
And if you from down here, you always gonna get it. But people don't want to give that credit because people want to put this weird stamp on what's real, as if Immortal Technique is that degree of realness. Like, no, man, like it's real. If it's a real situation, you're not just talking. And when you hear someone like Lil Baby, when you hear someone like Project Pat, when you hear these street dudes, like you hear Young Boy, Gates, all them, that's real. That's real music. You couldn't replicate that on a whim unless you were there.
Yeah, like things become formulas. You know, like things become cliche for a reason, you know, like they don't just become cliche for nothing. Like they have to have an impact. They have to be recognizable. They have to have a tactile, like real sense of like, hey, like this is what makes this special. Mm-hmm. Let me try to that's how things become formulas, regardless of how you feel. Cause like, I'm not a big Young Boy fan. I think he's kind of a monster and I don't think his music's that good, but it's real. Like, you know, like that's, you know, like I can admit that because
to your point, you can be real and not be good.
Yeah.
That's also fair. But like, here's the thing, like they always, like, it's always these like weird, it's a lot of white critics, but it's a lot of people that like, it's white critics, but then there's someone like Rap Critic who I respect, but like, I think he misses the point with a lot of his criticisms. Like he loved Bigger Picture, but like, I don't know that he'll understand freestyle and how amazing that was. And like, I don't know, they'll be like, oh, he's rapping about money and bitches and cars. Like, what's wrong with money? What's wrong with bitches? What's wrong with cars?
Like who cares?
Like what are you, a caveman? You don't like money? You don't like and like hell, it like in the South, bitches is like that is gender neutral. So like what, you don't like intimacy with others? You don't like nice vehicles? So then you're like exposing yourself at this point, like, oh, so you just a loser. You don't like money or women, or if you don't like women, you don't like men either. Like you just abstinent and broke. That's what you are. You just abstinent and broke.
That all reminds me of the Faux Fresh Vine where they're at Thanksgiving and the guy and he comes and he's like, oh, happy Thanksgiving, and he's like happy? This day is about the white man slaughtering the natives. And he's just like, you gonna cut up that turkey though, my nigga? You know, it's like
we
you're not
like we could like you're not wrong, but like we could talk about this over the food, bro.
Exactly. Like
you kind of hold me up, bro. I ain't eat all day and you talking about all this.
Yeah, like no, this is like this is stuff we need to think about, but let's eat,
like there's nuance in everything and there's grayness in everything, but fam, there is food right in front of me. There is money to get. What is the problem with getting money and food right now? There are cars to drive and there are bitches to fuck. Like come on, like we can't
homies
talk
to commiserate with, like however you want to slice it, like
oh they rap about shooting and whatnot and da 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 da. What I love about my dad's review of the thing is that he made a point. He was like, what I love about Moneybagg Yo is he don't shoot just to shoot. He shoot at the ops specifically. He not just shooting at strangers. He got people he need to take out. he not just shooting the crowd. I'm like, I feel that.
I mean, he's not wrong, like he's true to himself. Like that's what it means to be real. Like what it means to be real is to be true to yourself. And whatever that means, like whether that means you're shooting at the ops, whether that means you're on the road looking for women in cars, or if that means that you're a dork who raps about Super Smash Bros, like they're all real. Like that's what realness is.
If you want to be broken abstinent, be broken abstinent, but you should be but if you trying to like hate on others for trying to get money and trying to fuck out here, like you just a loser.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
like you hating because people aren't measuring up to your objectively lame standard. But I mean,
there's a time and a place for everything is basically what it is. Like it's just
all of this screams, I don't get bitches is what it is. I did all this articulating. Hey, I did all that articulation and whatnot just to say, y'all don't get bitches out here.
Hey, man.
So y'all don't get it.
Oh, damn. I mean, once again, not wrong. Shit. I got one, maybe two more questions for you before we wrap this up.
Cool.
So, like the music industry is probably one of the busiest sections of this entire like big conglomerate, independent type, big mix of everything happening in the world of entertainment. It's a lot. I didn't mean to say it like that. That was not very articulate, but whatever. I don't care. So like music is really busy. There's tons of shit coming out at any given point. Like artists drop every day, like not even like on just Tuesdays or Fridays. Like artists drop whenever. Somebody could drop at 3:45 tomorrow morning if they wanted to.
Somebody's probably dropping right now.
Probably, son. Like I don't know who it is, but like someone's about to put out someone's about to put out some heat at like 3:04 EST. Like so, like I just for you, like as a writer and as someone who's kind of taking in influences from music and film and just like being out in the world, like how do you manage to cut through the noise and find things that kind of connect with you? Like, is that a thing that it's a thing that we're all specifically looking for, but like, do you feel like you do that enough? Is that like something that's like, yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, I think it helps just to have a circle of people that you can trust in terms of like what's good and what's not. And like if you don't have those people around you, you're just gonna be listening aimlessly to what could be just a bunch of mid.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big thing. Just the communal aspect of it. Just, having people that can tell you like, hey, this is what's popping. Or like if you just randomly find something on YouTube, you can share that accordingly. Or
right.
If something sends something to you, like these are all, music's a big communal thing, and if you aren't sharing it, then you're kind of aiding to the detriment of music and music media, because we're gonna just be spinning circles. Like this is on Twitter, people will talk about stupid shit like the Drake and Pusha T beef. Like y'all don't listen to anything else. Like this is all y'all want to talk about.
Like still,
like there's like still like this is like the barbershop conversations where it's like, yo, who's the greatest rapper alive? Who's better, LeBron or MJ? Like we could talk about more than that. I hope you know that. Like there's more to talk about. that's when I think people will look at it like, oh yeah, music media is dying. Like, no, music media is not dying. It's just the desire to look for more is dying, because there's just so much. All of this is so overwhelming that people feel obligated to either not listen to it at all, or they need to listen to everything. And people are like, oh, this is too much. I'll just, whatever pops in is fine. But like, people's desire to search is so much less, which is like, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, you never know what's going to pop. Like, I would not sit here having my favorite artist being, my favorite rapper producer combo being Tony Snow and Cash Cash. Like, those are the guys, and I rock with plug music, and that wouldn't happen if I wasn't searching and I wasn't, looking to others that are within the community and wanting to share that.
Right. And yeah, like you see so many people talking about the same thing. It's kind of, it just kind of makes you feel like you have to talk about that in order to be heard. And you don't necessarily, like, I mean, like, I guess in a sense you do, but like, like that's not, like you said, that's not where the conversation should end. Like it should,
Yeah.
it like there's so much more to see everywhere. Like there's treasure everywhere, and like it's just, um, it's just,
Like,
yeah, it's just important to have those people in your corner for sure.
there's just, like, if you care about something, you should always talk about it. Like, we don't have to sit here and talk about shit that don't matter. Like, I'm not going to talk about Drake and Jay-Z catalogs every 3 weeks. Like, it kind of bores me after a while. Like, bro, I listened to this new album. Like, we wouldn't sit here and get ESTG, or we wouldn't sit here and get someone like Tony Snow, or we wouldn't get someone like Topaz Jones if we weren't looking for it. If people that didn't have the desire to share with others, like, we would just sit here spinning our wheels. That's why, like, I find, like, oh yeah, the big three is Drake, Kendrick, and J. Cole. One of those people did not drop. He has not dropped in 4 years. So why is he at the top three? When, hell, like, if you want to keep it mainstream, Future drops every year. Future's better than J. Cole. Future drops more than Kendrick. So, like, why isn't he there? Or, like, it's people that we listen to. Like, why can't these things be subjective? Why do we have to keep this weird objective sense of like, oh, these are the biggest people in rap? Who gives it? Like, I talked about this the other day. Like, I don't feel obligated to stay within mainstream media when I could just talk about what I care about. Same thing with underground. Same thing with underground artists. Like, I don't have to care about every underground drop. Like, if Rock Marciano drops, I'm excited and I want to hear it, but I'm not like pressed for Rock Marciano music. Whatever comes to me, and if the music's good, the music's always going to be good.
Right.
And maybe that's kind of jaded and cynical, like, oh, like, you're not excited for anything anymore. I'm excited for everything because there's new music everywhere. All you have to do is be receptive to it.
There's treasure everywhere. That's exactly it. Like, it's, it's just, it just takes work to not be jaded and just like have that balance too, because like it's really like the difference between, or not the difference, but it's just like having a balanced musical diet is really cool. Whether that be like mainstream versus underground, or rap versus R&B versus rock versus jazz versus whatever, like
I guarantee you people wouldn't talk about Drake's Scorpion so much if they had other songs to listen to.
Like,
I guarantee you we wouldn't sit here talking about J. Cole. Like, J. Cole's album just released not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have not thought about that album since it came out, because I've got other things to listen to.
Like, outside of reading Alphonse's review, shout out to Alphonse over at Pitchfork. Like, outside of reading his review, I haven't thought about that album in like a couple of days. I don't care.
Like, exactly. Like, I don't have to care about everything, but like, I'm also receptive to anything. Like, the least that I could do, like, I want J. Cole to be good and to entertain me, but like, I feel like I've kind of outgrown it. Like, this is very much like my career grinding music. Like, I need to get my VC up type music. Like, Like,
Yeah.
it's whatever, man. Like it's fine. And if J. Cole is the only thing that happens out of the mainstream this year, I'm fine because there's so many other drops. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not chained to the idea that mainstream music has to be great in order for music to be worth something.
Mm, that's a word. But then, you say that as, it's 100% true. I agree with you 100%. But then Kendrick's gonna drop, and then we're gonna have this whole conversation all over again.
And see, like
Like,
I guess that's the difference between like I might get spicy here for a minute, but like this is the difference between a Drake and a Kendrick and a J. Cole. Like Drake and Kendrick clearly have way more value than what J. Cole says.
mm,
I mean, that's just like people will put the hype around it because he has the level to do so, but a Kendrick album is great enough for it to like Damn is great enough to survive longer than the bubble. It can expand farther than just the week in which we talk about it.
he won a Pulitzer for it. Like, end of story. Case
Or like
closed. Like,
or like maybe if you didn't love Drake's Scorpion, like I think it's kind of whatever, but it has individual songs that can survive longer than the lifespan of what I think the off season is going to be, which is like it's fine. It's two songs on there that I think are genuinely outstanding,
mhm.
and then there's a whole bunch of whatever.
And then, yeah, the rest of it's gonna be on NBA highlight reels, and that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
that's cool. Like it'll survive as long as as long as you're in that. But like you know, it's the difference between Drake and Kendrick and J. Cole is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like
Nah.
there's a tangible difference, and which is why I think Future should take that J. Cole spot personally because he
Mm.
drops every year, and almost every time it's a ton of hits on there. Like High Off Life was whatever, but the year before, but 2019, The Wizard, fantastic.
Yeah,
Or
pretty. Not my favorite, but pretty good. Pretty good.
or like 2017, he'll drop 3 classic
Like,
albums. 2017, he dropped 3 classic Future, the self-titled record
yeah.
that had Feds did a sweep on it. Out of Time, High Demand, Mask Off, Hendrix,
Like,
Fresh Air, My Collection, Never Miss a Loss, Coming Out
oh
Strong,
man, Never Miss a
Sorry,
Loss is my favorite song.
or Super Slimy, Killed Before, Real Love, 3, on game. Like it's so much stuff on there, and
And
it's
then
all great.
and then that's not even talking about the three project run he went on from 56 nights to beast mode. Like,
To
it's
like
he's
like he does this not only better than J. Cole, but he does it more consistently than him. J. Cole does aspirational stuff. And maybe I'm just kind of past that because I am aspirational, but I am also like I have other things that give me more drive. Like if I'm J. Cole always feels like he has something to prove. I feel like I have something to prove, but my value is not diminished by others' reception of me.
right.
I think the freer and more comfortable J. Cole is, the better his music is. Which is why the best stuff on For Your Eyes Only, Change, Neighbors, for the self-titled song, those are his best songs because that's him at his freest.
Yeah, and that's what he was trying to get with the off season, and it just didn't really hit in the way that
No,
I thought it needed to. So
it sounded like he was trying to do something that everybody else is doing. And
yeah,
like
like he was trying to keep up with the
if
kids, in particular. Like,
if I needed someone to do that, I would go to them. But you yourself have a unique voice. You yourself are always going to have your own experiences. So you should communicate them effectively, excuse me. And
yeah,
you should communicate those well, and you should be yourself the whole time, which is why I've always wanted him to either embrace the more southern aspects of it, because Big Crit, who is who does all of J. Cole's stuff way better than him because he has way more personality. He's got way more Southern flavor to it. But J. Cole decides to dilute it down because he doesn't want to embrace that. Or like Odyssey, who is also like J. Cole. They make, like you told me this was a good word. Vibrant is how I would describe Odyssey.
Yeah.
And that's real like grown man shit. And like that's like dad music.
Yeah,
sense,
but it's not good. But it's not corny. Yeah, exactly. It's not corny.
Like it's got a lot of life to it. Like Odyssey makes refreshing music. J. Cole puts out stuff that I feel like I can get out of. Like Nick Grant is someone that I think has a lot in common with J. Cole. They are probably like their voices are so perfectly concrete, but they aren't transformative. And
right.
J. Cole makes good to serviceable music. Drake and Kendrick make transformative music. Big Crit makes transformative music.
Yeah.
Odyssey is refreshing. There's a difference between transformation and being just good.
Yeah, and I don't have anything to add to that. Like you just hit the nail right on the head, especially when it's just like with the Crit and Odyssey shit too. Like that's really it. I wish we had more time to talk, but like wow, this was like we went for I think we went for like a solid 2 hours. Shit, son. Wow.
So
yeah,
I told you to brace for a long conversation.
You did. No, man, I was looking forward to this, and this is pretty much exactly what I thought was gonna happen. And I'm like, yeah, like you exceeded my expectations, bro. This was great.
Listen,
man,
content king, podcast king. We in the building. We do this. No, I'm gassing, but it's fun though.
Yo, nah, man. Thank you for even taking the time. Like, I really appreciate you. Just
this is something that I wanted to do. This ain't like something that I felt like obligated to do. This is something that I wanted to do, and I was like, cool. I'll wake up at 10 a.m. and we'll knock this out.
Hell yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you more than you know. Thanks for listening. Shout out to y'all for making it this far, and shout out to all the Black people listening too, because y'all really impeccable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend to come through next time. 1.